Hello and welcome to Wehry Dads. I'm your host, PJ Wehry, with my co-host.
And this is Dad, and I'm excited about being with you again as we venture into manhood, mentoring, and maturity. So,
And our
sponsor
for
is
today
Full Focus Planners by Michael Hyatt. Do you know why I'm sponsoring that? They're sponsoring us, which they're really not. But why they should sponsor us?
Because you've already bought pretty much a lifetime supply of the planners.
I have a yearly subscription, so it doesn't come all at once. Although if you looked at our library, you'd think we have all these things. So really, I'm going to move past being, an attempt of being funny and just say reality-wise, how important it is to have what I like to call my brain, way to capture everything and to organize everything. And I use the Full Focus Planner, so thus you probably should too. Now, there are so many different tools out there, but I love the Full Focus Planner. But we could probably do a whole series on this because I did for a long time the one
Franklin Covey, right?
Yeah, Franklin Covey, and I did that forever. I tried to go electronic. I remember when Palm Pilots came out, I couldn't journal in it, and I just feel like there's something about pen and paper, putting your thoughts together. Now, obviously, you could do that on a computer and so forth. But anyhow, today's is Full Focus Planner. That's our whole session because I just got done. Yeah, right.
No, I like that you made that the sponsor for today, the fake sponsor. I feel like the whole segment is getting out of hand, but you know what? That just sounds like us all over.
Yeah, that we're out of hand.
Yes, exactly. We're kind of going to do a series on change in work, change in family, change in...
And that family one will be change in marriage, change in having kids.
Yes.
We're going to also discuss change of being an empty nester.
Right.
And then even change of what it's like with the elderly. And let's be honest, this has been birthed out of our last 6 months.
A lot of change.
Yeah. We have changes going on in our home right now.
We're almost... we're a week and a half overdue with Frankie girl.
Yeah. So PJ's wife, Becky, is...
great with child.
Yeah, I didn't want to say great because you're not supposed to say that, but she's majorly great. But anyhow, she is with child.
She is tired with child.
Yeah, it's really, very frankly, folks, it just makes you appreciate women in general, just what they are willing to do and to endure, and for birthing a child. We had my parents move into assisted living, but the last 6 months, my wife has watched them. We live, as many as you know from hearing this podcast, with PJ and Becky. Our other son, Drew, has met a friend. There are just a sweet girl. So here's the deal. There's changes going on everywhere in life. And so I'm kind of jumping on the lead here today. PJ and I have talked a little bit about this, and we think we can provide you some insight. One of the things I think...
So today's is more just an introduction to the series, just talking about change in general.
Yeah, just the reality of change, okay?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about big changes in life, and one of the things I felt was helpful and healthy and would provide us some background and strength is, I'm going to have PJ read Ecclesiastes in chapter 3, where we talk about seasons. You know, very frankly, it's funny you read this, but many people know this not because of the scripture, but because of the song by the Birds.
Everything turn. And copyright. Okay.
Oh, we can't go? Keep going?
No, it's like, I think it's like 5 seconds or 10 seconds.
What if we stop and then
start again?
So PJ, after you take your sip of Java, which is a help to his reading, he's going to read Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And folks, meditate on these thoughts as he reads chapter 3.
For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace.
I think if we were really wise, we could read that every day, because this encapsulates all of what goes on in life. I mean, this goes on. And, right away I begin to think of, there are just seasons in life. And we've often heard, let me tell you, there are three things in life: death, taxes, and, something else, whatever that person's
I've always
trying
just
to-
heard death and taxes. That's
Right.
it.
Well, no, it's usually when they want to make a point. I could tell you three things:
you're right.
death, taxes, and I won't make your mom happy. You hear men say these things all the time, and I go, like, first of all, you don't podcast that, but anyhow.
Does that? This sounds very specific, Dad.
No, it wasn't me. I promise. All right.
No, I did not think it was.
No, but I gotta say this, and this may be borderline for some controversial. One of the reasons during COVID that I felt I followed through with all the directives that were given to me, whether it be wear the mask on the plane, wear the mask here, all the things, even things I didn't always agree with or things I did agree with, I just followed through. But here's the thing I thought, and I was never fearful, maybe because I'm older and I have lived life, but there are two things: you live and you die. Now, there are probably more than two things, because you live and you die. And in between is what we're going to talk about, all these seasons. There are seasons of life. And change is inevitable. In fact, if you talk to a young person who's 8 years old, they all want to be what? What age?
12.
Yeah. Or 50. They can't wait till they get to the next stage. I can't wait till I'm 24 and I get married. I can't wait till I'm 30 and I have my own career. I can't wait till I'm 65 and I can retire. Everybody's looking to the next thing, because the truth is, next things are coming. And as we go through this time, Peach, as we talk about changes and seasons of life, there are a couple things. One, changes in life often lead to hardship, and it's part of life. Can you think of some things that as I say that, come to your mind as hardship? Think of you moving from elementary to junior high. What were some hardships you think kids face?
Oh, I'm still stuck on the baby thing. So I was thinking of when you have a baby.
No, we're not there. We're doing that series later.
I remember being overwhelmed moving into 7th grade and getting real homework for the first time.
Okay. Because I often joke, best age I ever had was 8 years old. 8 years old, my big responsibility was taking out the garbage. And if I kissed the little girl next door, everybody went, no, don't do that. But that's so cute. When you're 15, if you're kissing the girl next door, your parents go, what are you doing? Okay. So
hopefully, and her dad might have even something different to say.
Yeah. I know what you're doing. Okay. So you think of that that's harder. There's more responsibility. I've got to do homework, or even how do I fit in? All those things. Think about the hardship of going to college. What are some hardships that when you go to college?
Paying bills for the first time.
Yep. And maybe moving away from home, being away from family. Obviously, in your case,
cooking for yourself.
Oh, and there's nothing like a good ramen.
Yes. Yet it's like, oh, look, it's ramen again tonight.
Yeah. But all of these things lead to different types of challenges that you never had before. And the truth is, we all know this: do hard things. Hard things cause us to grow. It is also a time of humbling. Every time. Like, you're not all that in a bag of chips when you move from a small city and maybe move into a bigger city, whatever those changes are, or you go from a smaller position at work to a bigger position at work. These will allow you to be humbled, and there is always good coming out of humility, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's when it talks about we are given many different types of trials so that we can persevere in our faith and be made perfect or mature, as that might be a better definition there. That's these are gifts that God gives us to remind us to rely on Him.
Yes, that's your hope, right? God is your hope. And as you say that, you go back to also to your statement about James in James chapter 4, God resists the proud, okay? And he gives what to the humble? More
Grace.
Yes.
And I just want to stop there for a second. And I just want to do this more often when the word grace is used, because growing up, it wasn't interjected a lot, but grace is the free power of God in your life. His power working in your life for your good, even when you don't deserve it. And so when we talk about God's, just because sometimes we just say grace and like people are like, oh, okay, so when change, God gives grace.
And mercy,
Yeah,
grace and mercy.
Right. And the idea here is like sometimes you don't get what you deserve, which is punishment, right? And that's mercy. And then grace here is the hope that we have is he gives us just all these good things. And that's, that can vary from like the rain that makes our crops grow to,
which is part of the seasons.
yeah,
right. We're in a season of
all these
Florida.
things.
What's going on every day between 3 and 6? Every day, weather-wise.
Some kind of thunderstorm.
It's going to be there. And it's important, folks, I don't know how to say this to you. It's hot.
Yeah.
And that takes the heat down. It makes it sometimes a little muggier, but it takes the heat down and it waters. And otherwise, we'd have no grass. And, we already have to water enough anyhow. But all of this is good.
Well, and I think what I love about that is we often get disconnected from how complicated and how much we rely on what God gives us, because we have several steps of humans in the way. One of the biggest blessings I think I've been able to do with homeschooling with my boys is doing the garden. And all of a sudden, like, I'm not giving the garden what it needs. I'm trying to give it more water, and it's just not as good as rain. And I'm just sitting there and I'm watching the sky, and I'm like, oh, this is what this feels like. Do you know what I mean?
Really
and
good.
It's like, anyways.
And here's the truth: is you're saying that all of this, that this change is healthy for us too, because change leads to growth, and growth is where we get strength, and it's healthy. And then God is our hope in all of this. And the last thing I want to bring about in regards to change in this early section of this is it's also change can often lead to I have happiness, so because it kind of rings with the whole healthy and hope, but really it's joy. When we see God bring you through change and you see what you have learned and what God has done and how he's enabled you and encouraged you and exhorted you and been the edifice that you need, man, you cannot but rest in him and find joy. I don't want to finish up with that. I want to go a little bit farther if we can.
Yeah.
Can you tell me some times where you, and we don't want to take away from the others, but can you talk about being stretched during a time of change? Do you have any idea or?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to just touch on this, something that I've been thinking about. There's a couple different projects that I feel God's calling me to. And one of them, well, maybe not me, but I feel like the church needs a really in-depth theology of change, because we're seeing more and more dramatic change in our culture at large.
Yeah, this is really
good. And the
good.
church doesn't know how to handle it. Right. And I don't have, and that's fair. Like, a lot of change is difficult to handle. That's kind of, we talk about the hardship of it. But what I would say, as we've gone through a lot of change in our lives, and maybe a good starting place for someone who's going through change themselves, which is basically everybody, and for someone who's looking to dive deep and maybe continue to work on this, there are three things that come to mind that would be kind of the important building blocks for theology of change. And one is God's sovereignty, that he is in control, not us.
Yeah, that's really good, Pete.
And the theology of rest, one that we rest in God's love. And so no matter what happens in change, we are good because we are chosen by God. We are abiding in God. And that's what we need to do. We need to rest in his love. And we need to rest in Sabbath, which I think is a good, if you constantly just try to go with the flow of the change, you will be overwhelmed. And the last one is wisdom. And I think that goes even back to what you're talking about, like change is humbling, and it pushes us, we look at James, it says to ask, and in Proverbs it says to seek. Mm-hmm. And so you need wisdom to handle change. And so that sovereignty and that rest and that wisdom are that's a way of figuring out how to deal with what is going on in your life. If you can start with those three things, and really each one of those
three
is a way
again.
of teaching sovereignty, rest, and wisdom. You could say sovereignty, Sabbath, and wisdom. But those work kind of with what you're saying about what your five H's. You're talking about hope. You're talking about humbling. You're talking about joy.
Which isn't an H, it was happiness. But
yes, yeah. And so as I look at this, wisdom is something that is given by God.
Yep.
And one of the things he does is he gives us trials. He gives us things that require great change. And you know what that great change does to us?
Points us right back to him.
And it molds us. It gives us wisdom.
Yeah.
And this is, so as we look at this, we see that God talks about trials and big changes that bring hardship as his way of molding us. And so, I didn't want to be a businessman. That wasn't like a goal in life. And God kept directing my paths that way. And I have grown immeasurably because of that. And I would not have expected that, and I would not have asked for that. And he gave that to me to build something in me. And so, when you talk about, personally, where have I been stretched? I've learned a lot about rest and about how I have to take charge of my own rest. I can't just go with the flow because there's always something more to do with my business. I've talked about that before. Even now we're launching a new arm of the business, and I think about God's sovereignty. You can be as good at sales as you want, and at the end of the day, God brings the person.
No question.
You cannot force people for sales. And then wisdom, that's just something I'm constantly asking for. And it's always there's the hope I have in Christ. There's the hardships of business, and man, do I get humbled a lot.
Yes, it's part of the process. One of the words that I've heard used a lot, and I've used it a lot, is all of these changes you need to, and this is a buzzword, but it's really navigate. But that navigation only comes through wisdom and discernment, and that comes through going through other changes and God giving you strength. The last thing I want to finish up with today is, as you deal with change, you've heard PJ and I mention this, you need stability. And stability is found in Christ because he is our rock. He is our refuge. And he is the one that, as you deal with different people so far, is a reconciler. So all of that is strong. The second one is the importance of your surroundings as you deal with change. And because there is some confidence in having some constants. And let me just say this. It is important that you invest in relationships in your family and in your church and in your friendships, because those surroundings will be a great edifice and they will uphold you as you go through change. The statistics for people that are successful coming from stronger families and stronger surroundings are, and I don't have them. I've seen them. I can't remember them all, but they're strong. That the people with those have a better chance because they are have this rock, this cornerstone. Now you can overcome that, but the truth is often that overcoming is through Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever. For a believer with a strong family, they're going to be able to navigate this probably in a greater way. So as we talk about manhood, mentoring, and maturity, we're going to talk about changes in the next few times. But don't get away from the fact that those you're investing in, especially your wife and your kids, that investment is setting them up for not success. That's not what we're looking at, but for significance, right? And this is a great, I don't know the right term, but it's a great flow into the fact that I've got to be faithful with what God's given me in regards to my marriage, my home, and for those that I influence. So we're talking about the importance of manhood, mentoring, and maturity. And those will lead to someone being able to deal with change better.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dad.
Love you, buddy.
Love you.